Bruh, you can't tell me this cover art is not the business. This is beautiful. And then the title too, Sins of Sinister. God, and then the premise of the story. I just wish that the dialogue and the art on the inside matched everything I just mentioned right now. But listen, welcome to Reviews from the Six. My name is Cedric, but you can call me Ceddy Said, and today we are reviewing the Sins of Sinister. And of course, it's Marvel Comics, and it doesn't matter if you're a DC fan, Image comic fan, Valiant comic fan, it doesn't matter, MCU, DCU. Today we are discussing our hobbies, and our hobbies are comics. Again, you guys want to know about the story, you want to know about the character, what I thought about it, and I'm gonna tell you everything that you need to know today. But first things first, we're gonna go ahead and start with the art. Like I showed you, the cover art is pretty gorgeous. What I liked about the inside of it is they give you a timeline of the stories too, because it's gonna come a point in the stories you're kind of like, all right, what does that mean? Who is that? Why are these people involved? And I think it's one of those, because they had so many characters in here, it's kind of like, all right, these are who these characters are and their involvement, and we'll get into that when we get into the characters. But yeah, I think that's enough of showing the art. It just seems meh, especially Sinister. Like, I just didn't like the way they drew Sinister in here. Nimrod too. I mean, there was a cool scene with Wolverine. I really like that one. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it's basic. Now, when you get to the characters as we're naming, right, we have the main character, in my opinion, which is Sinister. So everybody knows Sinister is an engineer. He splices and deals with DNA. Well, what he does is, without ruining the story, but just tell you what the story is about, is that he takes the mutant gene and he puts his gene inside of the mutant gene. So what he's trying to do is create immortality. But the way it works, or his logic is that if he puts his DNA in the X gene, you would have the mutant abilities, but you would die and come back a Sinister, which he can take control of and manipulate. So when I heard that, and when I was reading that, I was like, yo, I'm on board with that, right? And just liking the way Sinister looks, Mr. Sinister looks in his name, there was no way I couldn't pick this up. But the way they made him look inside the comic was just kind of sketchy. It just kind of threw it off for me, right? I'm like, you had all this build up, and then the first picture you show me is what you see, what we're all gonna see, you know, when you pick up this comic, and you're like, all right, huh? But I'm pretty sure it gets better, right? So long story short, that's going on, and it throws you off because in the beginning they put him in the pit. You're like, why are they putting him in the pit, right? But the cool part is, as you're looking at the art, everybody has the same red diamond on their forehead as Sinister. So you're like, oh, okay, except for a couple of them, right? So a couple of them don't have it, but you come to find out that they're cloaking themselves, right? Not cloaking themselves, but you know, they're staying camouflaged. You know, they're camouflaging that. So you see a lot of other characters here as well. You see characters like Professor X. You got Storm. You got Nightcrawler. You have Hope. You have Forge. You have another character too. Let me see here. You have Exodus. You have Emma. So you have those characters, right? And I was like, all right, bet. I haven't read a lot on these characters, and I don't know a lot about some of these characters like Forge and Exodus. So I'm like, I'm in for the ride, but what are they doing here? They're pretty much just there to be the council. Now, we know Hope, that, you know, she can rewrite the Marvel universe easily, right? So I thought that was the cool part with her, where they kind of showed that she still is Hope. No matter if she's the Sinister or not, you know, she still is Hope, and she still has the ability where she can correct universes and situations, you know, period. So I was like, all right, bet. Forge, it was kind of weird because they used him. I mean, his name explains who he is, right? So he's there and he's forging a weapon for the council. And I'm like, okay, Exodus, you know, there really wasn't much. I mean, he was paired with Hope the entire time, so there's a connection there that, you know, maybe I got to read other issues and kind of find out what their connection is now, but they were paired together. Other than that, Emma and Professor X was paired together, of course, you know. And you're like, all right, bet. So I get to see an evil Professor X, right? Now, keep in mind, they only become Sinisters after they die. So there are certain characters that Sinister wants on the council. So he kills them in order for them to become Sinisters. And I was like, all right, that's dope. What else you got for me, right? After you get past that, the story kind of becomes muddled a little bit. I'm not going to say muddled, but it's just, like I said at the beginning of the video, the dialogue of everyone. Like, reading the dialogue, it was almost like they all sounded the same. You know, it was like I was reading it in the same voice. Like, there was nothing that separated the characters from each other, right? So it was like I'd be reading Storm. You know, Storm is the character. It was no different than reading Sinister. You know, it was just like reading all the same thing. And then they mesh in a few other characters, like, you know, the Eternals are in there. Like I said, you have a shot with Juggernaut, Thanos. It's just a mix. It doesn't become muddled, but there's just so much that's going on. And I expected to see like an all-out war because it's Sinister and he's making everybody crazy. You do get that. Don't get me wrong. There's a few pages where you get that, but it's not a lot of that. Anyways, back to the story, right? So now, like I said, now it's kind of confusing because you're like, all right, he's turning everybody into Sinisters, but now they're throwing them into a pit. Why are they throwing them into a pit so soon? Well, now you got the other members of the council like, hey, we in charge now. Let's run this piece. So there's back to, like I said, karaoke or karaoke. I could be pronouncing it wrong, but I'm taking it that this being is like the heart and the soul of the planet. Like, this is Mother Nature to them, right? It kind of looks like a tree stump or mud or something like that. Like I said, the art, it was just so it looks like that, right? So anyways, they're like, hey, we need to kill this thing because this thing is keeping all the humans alive on Earth. Now, Earth is like this uninhabitable place. Like, everybody's dying, everybody's getting the mutant gene or the X gene so they can live longer, right? So you're like, okay, there's going to be a lot more Sinisters. However, Sinister just want a select few, right? But you got to remember, he's an engineer, so he's just doing tests. Keep that in mind. So he's just testing it out, right? So anyways, the council is like, hey, we got to destroy this. That's where one of the characters by name comes into play, right? And they're like, all right, bet. But then they have things on the side that's going on, like they have to impress like an entire political platform, right? Which Ben from the Fantastic Four plays a big part in, right? Him and Jameson. So you get characters like that too, where you're like, all right, cool, you know, just small parts. But anyways, I mean, there are ways to detect if people are Sinisters or not. And Ben has the gun or the shot that does so. However, Ben is explaining to Jameson, like, look, a lot of these politicians are crooked. They are Sinisters. I'm telling you right now. There's a twist to that, right? Which is pretty cool. Real cool. You're like, oh, okay, bet. So there's a twist to that, right? So now you got to keep in mind, there's all these Sinisters. Now, a lot of people are dying and are becoming Sinisters, but Sinister is like, yo, I don't want to have control of these people. There's no point. It's time to get rid of all these people now. So somehow this vision comes back to play and you're like, okay, bet. Let me see where they're going to go with this, right? So they go ahead and try to take out the life source of the planet. Well, that doesn't go so well for the council because now you got other people or other planets and other life forms looking like, wait, what? We have a pact with them. We have a treaty with them. Nah, y'all got to stop all that. Y'all want the smoke? We gonna bring it. So that's where, you know, you got the Eternals, they come into play. So many other characters too. You're just kind of like, all right, you know, some Omega mutants, some that just live on other planets, some planets you haven't heard from in a long time. And that also to mention too, they're trying to bring back to life a character named Genosha. And I guess that's like an ancient evil too. So then you got their villains or his enemies coming too to stop them from bringing him back to life or she back to life. So you're just like, okay, there's a lot of fighting and a lot of war going on, but there's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of reason why besides that they're Sinisters. But I thought that was the cool part, because a lot of characters, a lot of superheroes got some revenge. Like, for example, Wolverine. We all know Wolverine pops up out of nowhere sometimes, right? He pops up, and of course he's a Sinister, and you're like, oh, that was cool, you know? Then you got a couple mashups, right? Like you had the Avengers, you know? Now you got to keep in mind, it was for mutants. So you got the Avengers in here too. So the Avengers, some of the Avengers become honorary X-Men. However, you got some Avengers that start fighting back. They're fighting the Sinisters because they're not mutants and they haven't died. So it's like he's creating zombies, right? So that's what I mean. Like the entire story, when it comes to the story, they had so much that I would have loved if they would have focused on those. But all in all, it still was a great read. Like I really did enjoy the read. I just kind of wish everyone had a different personality. And I kind of wish they dove more into like certain characters and their revenge and their vengeance. Like, for example, let's take Nightcrawler, right? I kind of want to see who he beefing with. Like, who had he want to rip off as a bad guy, you know? You got Storm in there. Like, imagine Storm just lighting everybody up and everything. You had Cyclops in there, but he had a very, very, very small part, you know? So, in the end, he's playing God, and it doesn't go the way he wants to. And Noah's Ark kind of takes place. So, yeah, with that being said, man, if you made it this far, you already know what it is. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit that like button, because if YouTube doesn't know you like this, it's going to be like, nobody likes said. Also, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And make sure you share this video to any and all social media platforms, especially someone that would find this video useful. With that being said, peace, love, and blessings.